What's up, guys? Welcome back to Almost Functional 40K. Just want to do a video today about list building. Um, Not so much how to build a list as to why to build a list. People, a lot of times when we're looking at units, we look at just the straight math of defense or offense. This many shots, this much damage, this much toughness, this much armor save, this many wounds. And sometimes we don't look at the little stuff that goes along with it, like little abilities, especially in 10th edition, because the random secondaries are, I believe, in most cases, the best way to play in most matchups. I mean, depends on what army you're playing. Certain armies will tech into fixed better, but the majority of the time, I believe that tactical is better. So the first thing you have to look at are what is your local meta? Like what are the main things you have to deal with? Like locally, I know there's a lot of Eldar Custodes where I'm at. I know down when I was in Florida, there was a lot of orcs and Necrons and stuff like that. So your meta can depend on where you're at. I'm not going to be talking about specifically like high level major lists because there's lots of other places that talk about that. This is just more for the casual guys, those of us who go to just local events most of the time. And you can take these strategies and ramp them up to help with larger events, but sometimes the meta at a larger event is harder to pick out because it's just people from all over the country or world, depending on what event you're going to. But that's one of the main things you need to figure out. All right, what's the meta? What are the main armies you're going to have to deal with at events? And what terrain layouts are being used at your local events. And that can skew how you build your list. If you're running very wide open tables, you are going to want to skew more shooty. If you have average terrain, you can do a mix. And if it's like super cluttered, which I haven't seen a lot of that in 10th, but I'm sure there's someone out there that's playing somewhere that they do that, will really benefit combat. Um, and so you got to look at, all right, what do I have to deal with, say, knights? So you need something that has a little bit of punch. All right, but what about Genestealer? All right, so you also need something to deal with Horde. So you need to find a balance between stuff that can kill Horde and stuff that can kill big stuff. And if you can find units that do both, that is amazing. Like in Marines, Desolation Squads, with their Crack and their Castellan, they can tech into both. That's why you see them in almost every Marine list. I've been running the Vindicator, which a lot of people I've heard talk down at because it's only got like 24-inch range, but 2 up save, T11, 11 wounds, and it's got strength 14, neg 3 d6 damage, but it's d6 plus 3 shots blast. So it's really good into like knights and big stuff, but it also still has a decent amount of shots into hordes, and a lot of hordes will have one or two tougher infantry blocks that they try to get in, not just their hordes. Like Genestealer Cult, you got the one Aberrant squad and stuff like that. Necron, when they run a horde Necrons, a lot of times you'll have one Lich Guard squad. So having something that has that kind of mix of firepower and multiple shots can be really useful. But once you get past the how do you do damage to and remove some of their units from play, how do you score points? Because only a few of the secondaries require you to kill enemy units. So that's when you want to start looking at stuff that has infiltrate, deep strike, the ability to go back into reserve, the ability to be untargetable, really fast, the ability to get extra movement, like something like Eliminator, shoot, move. So they can move, shoot, and move. So they're still getting like a 12-inch move, but they're also getting a shot in. Stuff like the Calidus for Marine or Imperium. She can go back into reserve, pop back up. Like Grey Knights have that, just they can put units back into reserve. Necrons have like the Veil of Darkness. The Monolith, I've seen people run the Monolith to decent success, warping units through it to provide mobility that isn't naturally in the army. So you need units that can go do cleanse, do deploy teleport homers, because when you do these actions, you have to give up your shooting, your charging. So you don't want a big 300 point brick of your big damage dealing unit doing this. You want a little 70 to 100 point unit that can go do this and die, and that's fine because that was their job. They got you 5 points. They can die. They did, and that was part of your. And you have to have that as your game plan. Man, I really lost that unit. Yes, but that's part of the game plan. Now I'm up on points, or I'm keeping pace on points. And you need units that can. But you do need units. That's why I like to normally try to want at least one decent combat unit that can go do storm in hostile objective, take an objective from the opponent, or overwhelming force, go in and kill something off an objective. Not everybody have access to that, so sometimes you'll need fast shooting units to jump in there. And if they're survivable as well, that really helps because not only can you take it for that secondary, you can hopefully hold it into your turn to help push primary. And do you have a fast horde army? Like I know orcs. A friend of mine down in Tampa, Lewis, runs orcs to great effect with that. Just horde fast orcs. Basically, he just pins people when it works in their deployment zone and makes it hard for them to push mid-table. And so even if you whittle down the orcs in a couple turns, they're running up primary and secondary on you because they're limiting where you can get on the table. All right, well, so you can build that type of list, but also if you're playing against that type of list, what do you have? What do you do? You need units that have fly, or that can deep strike behind them, or stuff like that. How do you get past that wall and be able to score points? Otherwise, you just auto lose that matchup. So those are the main things you got to look at: meta, terrain. If the tournament tells you what missions, that can change things. Because if you know you're playing Purge the Foe, sometimes MSU can be really difficult because you're just giving up hold or kill more almost every game. So now you really have to win hold more and then beat them on secondaries. What else? Any weird obscure rules that are iffy? Just confirm what your local TO how they rule that, so you're not surprised. Bring it in thinking you're gonna pull this weird combo that people on the internet told you works, but you've heard some people say it doesn't. Well, if your TO rolls against you, now your whole list doesn't do what you were trying to do. So just confirm stuff like that. If like there's a lot of stuff, especially early in the edition, that's going to be iffy and borderline, and half the people read it this way, half the people read it that way. And playtest. And don't change your list after one or two games, especially if they're into like the same armies. Try to playtest. I know not everybody has time to playtest, but especially local RTDs, take it to one or two events before you really start changing the whole core of the list. Play it into Knights, play it into Necrons, play it into Genestealer Cult, play it into Custodes, play it into Marines, and see if you find you're having the same weakness in every game. Man, I'm not scoring secondaries. I'm not scoring primary. I just really can't kill lots of little stuff. I really can't kill this big stuff. Find the flaws in your army, not in one matchup, in all the matchups. Like if you have a consistent thing, that's a problem in all the matchups. Then go back and look how to address it. Do you have one unit that underperforms in most of the matchups, and another unit that overperforms? Well, maybe you drop the one and duplicate this, or drop the one and find something to stick in to try to solve what mission playing you're having or killing you're having problems with. And no matter what you build, there's probably going to find one matchup that's bad, and you'll just have to try to outplay your opponent in those. Because it's unless you're pre-nerf Eldar or even maybe even current Eldar, there's not a lot of armies that are good into everything. There's just such a wide variety of indexes and units and stratagems and war gear and enhancements that it's hard to build something that fights everything. If you're good into Custodes and Imperial Knights, you might struggle with something like Genestealer Cult. And if you're really good in Genestealer Cult, man, I got all this stuff that kills all this infantry good. Well, then you might struggle into the Knights. So you just have to find, all right, which one is more prevalent in your meta, build something that can beat that, and also try to find a way to make your bad matchup something that isn't auto loss. That if they make a mistake, you play well, maybe get a little lucky here, you can find a way to pull it off. Because not every army is going to be able to build a list that fights everything. So you just got to, unless you're going to go out and buy the top Eldar and Genestealer Cult, if you're playing Tau, if you're playing Votann, if you're playing Admech, some of these armies you just got to know you're going to struggle right now, and just try to do the best you can, and just try to really skew toward what your local meta is, and maybe you can do all right. You probably aren't going to win all the events, but you could get lucky, dodge your couple bad matchups, and just hit what your meta is if you build into your meta, because that's what most people are bringing, and then maybe you might have a good showing. But that's it. That's my little rant for today. But hopefully that helps some people. I actually have an event next weekend. I'll be right now. The Space Wolves are winning in the poll, so we'll see what happens by the end of next week when I have to submit lists. I'm going to play test the Death Watch today, just because I kind of know how the Wolves play, because it's just this tweak on the ATC list. But I haven't got to put the Death Watch on the table. It's all theory in my head, so I've only got 4 votes so far. So just in case Death Watch come back in the poll, I want to have some reps with them. But that's it for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.